Hi, this is Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update. And my guest today is Tessa McCrackin, the Chief Marketing Officer for Northgate Resorts. And you guys are based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, correct? Yeah. And I think people who watch the show are probably familiar with the Northgate Resort name. I mean, if they keep up with Woodall's, we post quite a bit about Northgate and some of the things you guys keep up on. I guess, how many resorts do you guys officially own now? Do you have a number?
Well, as far as how many we're operating, we're at about 35, I think, right now.
Okay.
So that's a mix of some where we own pieces of the property and some where we're doing just straight third-party management.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys started third-party management. When did you guys start getting into that?
Yeah, it's pretty recent. So about a year and a half ago, we started dabbling with the idea, and now we're offering third-party management to multiple partners. So we've had a lot of growth in that area over the past year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's an area where I think I've seen here, even at Woodall's, we've seen a lot of companies jump into it. Some that are well seasoned like you guys, and then some other companies that have only been, it seems like, in industry for a year or two, but they're jumping into it too. So there must be a pretty big market for third party management at the moment.
Yeah. And we just kind of didn't have time to entertain this before because we were acquiring properties so quickly. But now we're at a point where we have all these systems in place that, adding more properties is, really easy for us. And we have everything kind of down to a science. So that's kind of what made us decide to make the jump.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts about Northgate is, well, you guys have had a partnership with Jellystone for a while, correct? You've owned Jellystones for a number of years now.
Yeah, since 2013, we've been working with Jellystone, I believe.
I don't know if you have do you know how many Jellystones you currently own?
Oh, that's really going to test me. We're operating high teens, I'm going to say. I should have that ready, but
no,
yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, and I mean, and then you guys decided that Jellystones weren't, you loved operating the Jellystones, but then you decided to create your own brand too. You have the Camp Fimfo, which I think is kind of interesting. You guys are doing some neat things with that brand. How many Camp Fimfo parks do you own?
Yeah, so we have 2 locations that are open right now, and we have multiple plans in the works for different locations across the country. But yeah, we love Jellystone, but we just saw an opportunity to do something interesting with Camp Fimfo, a slightly different, brand and target demographic. And so far they've been really successful, and we're planning to do more.
Yeah. What's the difference? You mentioned the target demographic. What's the difference between like what you're trying to attract at like a Jellystone versus maybe one of your Camp Fimfo locations?
Yeah. So again, we love Jellystone. We plan to do more, but so for Camp Fimfo, it's a little bit of a broader age range and appeal. So Jellystone, the target market, I think, is like kids 12 and below. With Camp Fimfo, we are expanding that a bit more. And you can see that with our amenity offerings, particularly, at our flagship location, we just opened a massive zip line, which is really an exhilarating experience. We have the first alpine coaster in Texas. And then, we're on the Guadalupe River, which has, tubing. And so it's more of that like adventure component with the Camp Fimfo, and then slightly more upscale accommodations maybe, and then event spaces as well. So you might not always, we certainly do have people that want to get married at Jellystone Park, but Camp Fimfo is a better fit for some people that want a little bit of a quirky, different experience for their group.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I was going to bring that up. I think it's the Guadalupe Glider Zipline. So do you guys, as a marketer, do you have to like test this stuff out before you can, effectively write about it? Do you have to make the trip down there and test that out?
A team from our home office went last week and tested it out. I was not on that group, but I did get firsthand accounts, of how it went, and exhilarating, I hear, is the right word. So I saw some videos of my coworkers looking pretty scared on it, which was funny. But yeah, I would certainly test it when I get the opportunity. We have another group that will go out there, but it's gonna be kind of hard to get a spot on it. It's been pretty popular since we opened it just in the past few days.
Yeah, I think I've ziplined once in the past, and a 40-mile-an-hour I don't know. That might be a little too intense for me.
Well, if you want to try it, I can hook you up.
But I also, you mentioned too, the Cliff Carver, the Alpine coaster. That is a really neat experience. It's kind of like you're giving people some experiential stuff. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I'm getting close. The experience type stuff, is that kind of like what you're seeing people really want right now? Is kind of those unique experiences they can't get anywhere else?
Yeah, certainly. I think people wanting experiences over things has been trending for a while. And customer expectations are really high right now too. So we're constantly trying to add things that can, make people feel like they're really getting the value for the money that they're putting down to stay with us, because these experiences are expensive and we want people to have the best time. So offering unique experiences and a consistent guest experience is something we're really focusing on.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess what are some of the challenges? Obviously, you guys added a zip line, you have the Alpine coaster. Are there any challenges that come with that kind of stuff, adding those kind of items? I imagine it has to be pretty like you have to have the right staff in place for those, correct?
Yeah, and I mean we have a good system. We have a strong operations team. They're really the ones that would talk about could talk to that more intelligently. But I know like parking, something as silly as that is, we have these really high demand attractions. And it's like, what do you do with all the people that want to experience it? So parking kind of continues to be an issue,
Yeah,
limited by how much land you have. And then as a marketer, I feel like still just getting the word out about these new things and that we're there. Some people I find still don't think about, if you're not a camper, don't think about going camping and understand all we have to offer. So I feel like I'm constantly still battling, this is my 9th year working here, still trying to get people to understand that there's a different kind of experience you can have when you're camping, and it's not a tent in the back of the woods necessarily.
yeah. I think one of the things we've noticed over the last like 6 months or even a year is kind of the booking patterns have changed. Have you noticed that as like a marketer? Because we've been hearing a lot of, I think during COVID there was a lot of advanced, like super advanced, like people were booking like 6 months or even further out. And now we're kind of hearing like there's a shift to where they're booking closer to when they're actually going. Do you notice that? I guess from the marketing perspective, do you notice that kind of shift?
Yeah, 100%. And it's so annoying. obviously, obviously you want those advanced reservations. So, and it makes it hard for, a number of reasons. We don't really know how things are going. Are people just going to book
Yeah.
later, or are they not going to book at all? And then, yeah, it makes year over year comparisons quite hard. And then it also just leaves you more exposed because if people are booking closer to the date, things like weather can really impact whether they're deciding to go at all or not. Whereas before, people would be kind of locked in, they decide to go anyways. But certainly this spring, we experienced this. And last year too, where it's just been cold and wet in the east, and that's really impacted spring bookings. And it'll continue into summer as people wait longer and longer to book, and maybe it'll be really hot, maybe it'll be raining, and people will decide to stay home, which would be unfortunate.
Does that kind of open up? Because I know, so for me, one of the frustrating things is I am not a pre planner. So, like during COVID, if you were a pre planner, you were doing great. If you're like a spur of the moment person, it could kind of suck sometimes because things would be already booked. So, I guess, um, does it enable you as a marketer to be able to get some of those spontaneous people, I guess, that to say, hey, we still have sites available and you can still book a great weekend even though you're only a couple weeks out, I guess.
Yeah, and we've focused a bit more recently on getting those people that can book short term. So, we've segmented our email list with, for example, with people that we know are willing to book last minute. And so they might get different messaging than someone else who tends to plan in advance. Saying we might have to like roll out a promo or something to people that are booking last minute, but there's some disadvantages obviously to booking last minute too. You might not get the site type you want in the area you want. So we still find people that are really set on having a certain kind of experience do want to book in advance, but there are marketing opportunities to get those people to come in last minute too.
What do you say? So, I go to a lot of conferences. I don't know if you attend a lot of conferences. I might have ran into a couple times at some. But marketing is always a huge deal for park owners. I think, especially even with AI, it's really interesting to see how marketing is going to shift with AI coming in. But I guess, one of the things I always hear from park owners is that, oh, well, it's easy to market when you have like a Jellystone or something where you have all these attractions but I only have like 50 sites and a pool. And how do you come up with stuff all the time? I guess, do you have any advice for parks? I mean, when I look at like a Camp Fimfo, like you have this zip line, you have an it almost seems like it would be pretty easy to market a location like that. How do you market a park that maybe doesn't have all of that, I guess?
Yeah, and we have those locations in our portfolio,
Yeah.
for sure. So, we talk about the Fimfos more just because, yeah, they have the exciting, flashy things, but we have properties that don't have those big, exciting updates, and we need to market those as well. But something that we find that it can be like the smallest update, just anything that's showing that you're reinvesting. Um, your guests or prospective guests really like to see that investment, especially people that have been there before. So, I was just thinking about some things that we've announced in the past that have been, like not exciting updates, but for like a Jellystone, even we said, the Bears are going to be out like one more time a day. People
Yeah.
love that. They're like, I can never see the Bears enough. And that was, a very modest like improvement we made. Or other silly things like we might post a picture of improving our pool deck and, the staff working on that and stuff like that performs really well. So it doesn't need to be a big flashy addition, but like any kind of improvement we find that people really like. And some people are looking for that more traditional experience too. So I don't want to, people are looking for that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely segments of RVers that complain. They're like, these parks are getting too much like amusement parks. I
Yeah.
mean, not there are some Jellystones that are like almost like amusement parks, but but people don't necessarily want that. They want kind of like the backwoods, like relaxed, maybe a small pool, maybe a playground, and they just sit there and walk some trails. So there's definitely that segment of people out there. Um, I think it's kind of interesting to see how well people get invested in their park. Have you noticed that? Like, where you can have like the most mundane thing, like we added a couple fire rings, but people are so invested in a park that they've camped at forever that that kind of gains attraction on the marketing perspective too, I guess. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. And so for some of our locations, we have like super fans. We just know their name. It could be posted in some random Facebook group like camping in Maryland or camping in Texas, and somebody will be saying, oh, I had a bad experience, here. And we see like, we know that so-and-so from so-and-so is going to come in and defend us. And that's the best to have those, super fans out there for you. So, we try to always, cultivate those return guests who, kind of, those are the people we really value.
I guess on the negative side, sometimes those super fans can be can be kind of a pain if you do something you don't like. Have you ever run into that experience?
A vocal upset camper? No, never been. Yeah, 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 all the time. But I think like we try to really monitor all of the feedback that we see online really closely. So obviously we're surveying our campers post day, but we're also very actively monitoring not just like the reviews online, but any kind of mention. And we have a process internally where we take any kind of critical feedback and we pass that along to our park teams and operations team, and we have a dialogue about pretty much every single kind of piece of feedback we get online, which I think is pretty unique, and try to address those concerns or find out if there's validity to those concerns that people are expressing, and then make it right with the guest and with the experience on site if that's applicable.
Yeah, yeah. And you guys, so you're chief marketing officer, so I imagine you have more people on the marketing team. Either that or you do it all yourself, which would be really impressive. But so how do you guys monitor all of the? I mean, that's something else I hear from park owners when I go to conventions or conferences. They're like, there's just so many different channels. How do I do it all? And obviously, I think for some park owners, it's like you have to start small, and then if you master one thing, maybe you keep going on, and maybe you could develop other channels. But I guess, how do you guys keep track of all?
Yeah, and so I'm definitely not doing it alone. We have quite a large team, actually.
Yeah.
Northgate really believes in marketing and providing excellence in marketing, basically, and we continue to invest there more than I think a lot of other properties do. So we have a team that specialize. We have specialists in house, so we do a lot of things that you might outsource elsewhere, like your paid ads. We have in house that manages those, and then we have marketing associates that oversee their property. So I think that we're really good at doing more advanced marketing, I guess I will say, but then also still like retaining local market knowledge that you would have if you were smaller operator. I think we have a nice mix of both. And so sorry, what was the second part of your question?
I guess, yeah. What do you recommend to like those smaller park owner operators that maybe can't afford like another agency or a team? I guess what do you tell those owners as far as what they should really be focused on? I guess.
Well, they should let me help with their marketing. No. So, well, something that we find takes the most amount of time is it's not actually like setting up these paid ads. It's
Yeah.
doing organic social media posting. Like you have to post all the time, and it takes time to create video content, which is king now. And then responding to reviews in the summer, like that takes hours. So the bulk of the things that my team is working on are kind of like responding to reviews and guest feedback. Oops, there's a thumbs up. And then also, yeah, the organic social media. So things like that you kind of have to do, and you don't see an ROI with those necessarily. So you kind of need to just trust that people are going to be reading the way you respond to reviews and things like that, and then that taking time to monitor those reviews will improve your guest experience if you take that feedback to heart. But that being said, I know what you're asking about here. So we do a lot of Google and Meta ads. So if you're like, I can only have a little bit of budget and I only want to do a couple things, I would say probably your Google and Meta is where you should start. And then, yeah, monitoring your organic presence on social media and reputation management.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things too that people don't realize, and I think you touched on a little bit, is just that getting in the habit of consistent posting and making things interesting. And it doesn't necessarily happen overnight. Um, I have a friend who has a real popular YouTube channel, and he developed it with his brother for like it took 6 to 7 years to get to the point where it's at now. I think they have like 1.5 million subscribers. But I think that's important to realize too. Do you see a lot of people that just get frustrated because they're not seeing immediate, like maybe they thought it was going to blow up immediately, but they need to take a little more time to develop that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, even within our organization, sometimes we'll go and we will, within the marketing team, we'll create this like Instagram reel and we're like, this is going to take off. This is amazing. And then like nothing. And then you'll post like something you spent maybe 10 minutes thinking about, and that, of course goes viral. So it's really hard to like pinpoint what's going to perform well on social media. And so yeah, and it does take time. Like some of these have taken a while to really catch on, but we've continuously focused on our engagement rate here at Northgate, and every year we see our engagement rate go up on our organic social media, and it's above the industry standard. So we're happy with what we're doing there.
Yeah, I think too, it's like sometimes you post something and it doesn't immediately attract attention, but then you might be able to highlight it again, or it for some reason, like 4 days later, all of a sudden people see it and it takes off. I
Yeah,
don't know.
maybe even a month.
Yeah.
We've had some things where we've done where we've just we do a reel that's people have probably seen a concept like this. We just do distance from major metropolitan areas, over some footage. One of them took off like a month later, and it was like one of our top performing reels ever. So it's kind of hard. So I would just say, keep putting things out there. It doesn't hurt. So that's what we're trying to do at least.
How is AI changing your job, and like what does that mean for like the industry? I guess as from a marketing perspective, I guess.
Well, I'm hoping it'll be great for some of those things that I was mentioning you have to do, but take a lot of
Yeah.
time. So right now, I would say it's most applicable for us for responding to some of those guest reviews and picking out the feedback from it, just because the volume's so high. Or if you're getting a generic, good review, we can use AI to help respond to that. Or if it's a difficult constructive review, we can pick out the pieces of it that are most important, pass that off to our team, and then kind of help with the response. So we've been using a lot for responding to reviews. As far as creating content, we like video content. We haven't found a tool that we think does a great job for that right now, but that's something we'll certainly explore more. But as far as like just idea generation for copy or press releases or things like that, we're all using AI every day in some way right now, which is obviously a huge shift from like 2 years ago where that wasn't the case.
I think for people, and I don't know, I don't. It looks like. Do you like to write, Tessa? Do you like to like sit down and write press releases and things like that?
I don't mind it. I like to write. I wouldn't say I love writing press releases, but I don't know if I should be telling you that.
I think I think for people who don't like to write or like they don't feel like writing comes natural to them, I think AI has been kind of interesting because I think from like a social media posts and things, people can like get those ideas and like suggest things that they want and they can get like a draft and maybe work off of that. Do you see that a lot, I guess, with AI?
Yeah, for sure. And it's super helpful. It's like having a constant person that you can brainstorm with, for me at least. And so
Yeah.
while I don't make that the final piece of copy ever, just because I think that it can, like, I don't know if you experience this when you're going through LinkedIn, you're like, can tell, oh, that was written by AI, that was written by AI, that was. So I try to always personalize it a little bit so it actually feels not completely iterative, but yeah, it's a great partner. It's like having the best employee that never lets you down in some ways.
As a journalist, I feel like I'm sinning if I use AI to write for me, but I could definitely tell when people use AI.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm like, so you could just kind of tell. But I also like the graph. Do you create graphics with AI? I know you mentioned the video, but I've kind of had fun playing around with like creating graphics with AI. That's been kind of fun.
Yeah, I think that there's opportunity there. We've had some struggles with, Jellystone's like a trademark.
Yeah.
So we've struggled a bit with Jellystone. So honestly, we haven't been using it much for that. And same with Fimfo. We are, still in the brand's infancy and we're trying to curate a very specific look. So we just haven't nailed it. But I think that that's something we'll continue to play with. And like, Photoshop too. I think it just has a little bit of ways it needs to go before it's like a super helpful tool that we're using every day in that area specifically.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I guess, as we're wrapping this thing up, I guess what are some things you guys are focused on for the next, the rest of the summer or the coming year? I guess, do you have more announcements that are going to be coming out here later in the year as far as like new parks that you've acquired or new attractions that you're adding or new marketing stuff, I guess?
Yeah, well, we're going to continue to be hoping to get more third-party management clients. So, if anyone's interested in that, absolutely reach out. Um, Internally, our operations team is focusing really hard on training this year and making sure that we're, like I mentioned, delivering that consistent guest experience. And we think that training is the key to that. So, as we're ramping up to peak season, making sure that all of our frontline staff are trained to the best of their ability in the same way to deliver that experience. And then marketing wise, we're really focused on, our ROAS, our return on our ad spend, just because, competition has increased in the past few years. We're needing to spend more to get fewer people in some cases. So being as efficient as possible is really important to us. And then, like I said, kind of using AI and just, but also just working on our organic social media presence, because, the more that we can pump out there that's, free and isn't paid is great for us. So we're investing there too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's exciting. So, I mean, every time I run into somebody from Northgate at a conference, or obviously we get your releases, it just sounds like you guys are really trying to grow, and you guys do some really neat stuff at all the parks that you guys own. And I always hear great things from other campers and people about the locations you guys have. So, you guys must be doing something right. So.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, that's great to hear.
Do you what is the best way for people to get in contact with you for the third party management stuff?
Yeah, if people email me, I can point them in the right direction. So my email is tmccrackin at Northgate Holdings, or if you go to northgateresorts.com, you can just fill out our contact form and you'll certainly get in touch with the right person.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and for talking a little bit about marketing and Northgate.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me and for always being a great partner.